It's week 7, and here with another lesson is the professor, here to teach you and help you win your fantasy football league this year. School is in session! Welcome back to the Other Fantasy Guys weekly matchup show, week 7 edition. The first matchup we have in store for you is the Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers. This game is going to be all about defense. It's going to be, I predict, a final score of 6-3. Honestly, the only couple people that I would like to start this week for these two teams would probably be their defense. And the only touchdowns that may be scored in this game may be defensive touchdowns. Honestly, in a long shot, you may like Michael Crabtree, you may like Vernon Davis. It'll probably be below average outputs. But in a bind, if you have a bye week going on, they may score you a few points, maybe get a lucky touchdown. And the next matchup we have in store for you is the New York Giants and the Washington Redskins. Last week, if you watched, RG3 looked impressive. He put up quite a few points. On the Redskins, I also do like Fred Davis against the Giants. He leads their team in catches as a tight end, so I do like him as well. On the other side of the ball for the Giants, you've got to like a lot of their team. Eli Manning, Victor Cruz, Hakeem Nicks may be back. Check the injury report. I don't think he'll play this week, and you might have to look at starting Hickson if you're a Nicks owner. But, the Giants, they will score a lot more points against the Redskins than they did last week against that tough Niner defense. There will be some points scored on both sides of the ball. It'll be a shootout, so be ready. And now we have the Arizona Cardinals at the Minnesota Vikings. Once again, another defensive game. There probably is not going to be a lot of points scored in this game. Both defenses are pretty good. Now, on the Arizona side of the ball, Larry Fitzgerald's probably the only one that you got to like because they're going to get him the ball one way or the other. They don't have a running game. It's going to be one-sided. Minnesota will take advantage. They'll probably dominate, and therefore Arizona will have to throw the ball. Larry Fitzgerald, you do have to like his odds. On the Viking side of the ball, Christian Ponder's been a top 10 quarterback 3 out of the last 4 weeks. You may look to sign him if you have your quarterback on a bye week this week. Adrian Peterson, Percy Harvin, of course, they'll score their points regardless. And you got to like Kyle Rudolph at the tight end position. He's got 5 touchdowns already this season. He seems like a monster. And next on the agenda is the Dallas Cowboys at the Carolina Panthers. The Cowboys looked a little bit better last week than they did the week before, even though they did lose. But they did score you some points if you were a Des Bryant owner or even a Tony Romo owner. So, look for them to have another pretty strong game against the Panthers. Don't look for anything too special, but they should be slightly above average in their points. You do also have to like on the Carolina side of the ball, don't be afraid to start Cam Newton. He's going to find a way to score points because he likes to get the ball to Steve Smith and Greg Olsen at the tight end position, and he's also dangerous with his legs. He should put up above average points for you this week. Our next matchup is the New Orleans Saints at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay last week had a game against the Chiefs, what I call a get-right game. They put up a ton of points. Mike Williams, Vincent Jackson, and Josh Freeman all had huge games. I think actually this week, Vincent Jackson and even Josh Freeman will be above average again. On the New Orleans side of the ball, you always got to like Jimmy Graham. And definitely, I think Marcus Colston and Drew Brees are getting back on track. It's tough to like anybody at the running back position. Honestly, on either of the teams, the only one would be the Bugs' Doug Martin that I would give the start to. Next on the agenda is the Green Bay Packers at the St. Louis Rams. If you watched Aaron Rodgers last week, you saw him have a spectacular game. He put up 6 touchdowns, scored about 50 points in your fantasy league. Guess what? A feat like that is usually not duplicated. Impressive as it is, this week, even if he has a great game, he might only get you 35 to 40. But he is going up against the Rams. They do give up a lot of passing yards. He's pretty good at passing. So I like his odds. Jordy Nelson, James Jones, even Jermichael Finley, I think this week will actually start hanging on to some of those balls, and he's going to actually score a few more points. On the Rams side of the ball, maybe Steven Jackson if he's feeling a little bit healthy. Darrell Richardson's splitting too much time with him. You can't really like too much of their odds. They get a few deep balls to Gibson and Givens. Really, for either of them, it's a crapshoot. That Green Bay defense looked a little bit better against the Texans. I don't really like too many players for the Rams. And now we have the Baltimore Ravens at the Houston Texans. Houston got demolished last week by Green Bay. I think they're going to play a little bit better this week, and I think they're going to come out with a vengeance. The sad thing for the Baltimore Ravens is that they did lose Ray Lewis and Ladarius Webb for the rest of the season with injuries, so their defense is definitely going to be affected. They'll still be good, but they're not going to be as dominant as they used to be. For that reason, I do like Arian Foster, Andre Johnson, and Owen Daniels in this game to all have above-average outputs. And on the Ravens side of the ball, I do think Joe Flacco, Ray Rice, Torrey Smith, and even Anquan Bolden will continue to do well because I think they'll fall behind a little bit early and they're going to have to throw the ball to keep up. Our next matchup we have is the Cleveland Browns at the Indianapolis Colts. Once again, there's not a ton to like on the Browns side of the ball except for Trent Richardson. He's pretty much all of Cleveland's offense. He carries the ball. He catches the ball out of the backfield. Last week, he had a little bit of a tough game against the Bengals' tough defense. This time against the Colts, he'll find an easier go. On the Colts side of the ball, Andrew Luck's a top 15 quarterback. I'm not saying he should be your starter, but if you're in a bye week this week and you have him on your team, he may be good to go. And also, you definitely like to have Reggie Wayne on your team, and I do like Fleener, the tight end in Indianapolis. And now we have the Tennessee Titans at the Buffalo Bills. I actually think this is going to be a very interesting matchup for a couple reasons. I think Chris Johnson for the Titans has actually started to get it going. He ran for some tough yards last week on the Thursday night game, and I think he's actually going to continue to do so because he's going up against a Bills defense that's a little bit softer. I think he actually probably breaks the 100-yard barrier and maybe gets you a touchdown. I also, surprisingly, like Nate Washington, Kenny Britt, and even Jared Cook. Now that Hasselback's been playing quarterback there for a few weeks, they're getting in a little bit more of a rhythm. I think it's going to be easier for them to score points than people think. And on the Bills side of the ball, it's tough to like Fred Jackson or C.J. Spiller. They split time. Now they're splitting carries. They're both healthy. If you have to, I kind of like C.J. Spiller. I think he's the elusive one that can get you that breakaway touchdown or that big yardage play. He might get you some points. I like Stevie Johnson in this matchup, but the one I like the most is Scott Chandler, the tight end, and there's a couple reasons why. He's actually number 7 fantasy tight end this year. He's got more points than Jimmy Graham, and he actually has more touchdowns this year than Stevie Johnson. And next, we have the New York Jets at the New England Patriots. Patriots had a heartbreaking loss last week. This week, I think they're going to get right. Now, I like Tom Brady's chances. It's tough to say with all his receivers who's going to do good. But you have to like Wes Welker. He's got almost 50 catches this year. Brandon Lloyd, not too far behind him with 34. And of course, Gronkowski. Now Aaron Hernandez is healthy. You kind of have to like them all. Now, the Jets' defense is not as good as the Seahawks, so I think the Patriots are going to put up some points, which means the Jets may have to throw. Who's on their receiving core? If Hill plays, maybe you start him. Sean Green I don't like too much, but he actually probably will get a few catches out of the backfield. He actually may be worth looking to start as a flex player this week. And now, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Oakland Raiders. The Oakland Raiders eventually this year are going to have an outpouring of offense. Who better to do it against than the Jacksonville Jaguars? Carson Palmer looked pretty good last week against a tough Atlanta defense. Jaguars are not that tough. I actually think he'll have a pretty good game. I think Denarius Moore will have a really good game. And of course, you got to like Darren McFadden's chances of running all over that Jaguars defense. On the Jag side of the ball, MJD, pretty much the only one you can like, and that's because he's going to be all parts of their offense, catching the ball out of the backfield and running it. Justin Blackmon, not this week, maybe later in the year. He's actually starting to get some catches. You may see him emerge by week 10 as a top receiver. And now we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. Last week, Pittsburgh came off a disappointing loss, and Rashard Mendenhall seemed to re-hurt himself. So I don't really like any of the Pittsburgh Steelers running backs. However, surprisingly, I do like Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and Mike Wallace this week. And of course, you have to like Heath Miller at the tight end position. He's a top 5 tight end. On the Bengals side of the ball, Andy Dalton's a top 10 quarterback. Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, Palomalu's out. So I actually think that Green Ellis will be able to run a little bit against that Pittsburgh defense. And of course, A.J. Green is a monster. You've got to start him. And Jermaine Gresham looked pretty solid last week. And the Pittsburgh loves to get up some points to the tight ends. So he should do all right. Our final matchup of the week is the Detroit Lions at the Chicago Bears. Division matchup. Should be a great Monday night game. I honestly think it's going to be a little bit more defensive than people think. I don't know if there's going to be as many points scored as people want to happen. I do like Jay Cutler for the Bears. I do like Brandon Marshall. They'll definitely get some catches. Surprisingly, I actually like Kellen Davis at the tight end position for the Bears. For the Lions side of the ball, Stafford, he'll do all right. I don't think he's going to do great against that Bears defense. Megatron, same thing. Hopefully he'll get you a touchdown. And honestly, Pettigrew, maybe at tight end he gets a start because the Bears do give up a few points to the tight end position. The Falcons, Broncos, Chiefs, Dolphins, Eagles, and Chargers are all on a bye week this week. And that brings us to the bye week blitz. With that, there's a lot of great players that are out on the bye week this week. So you're going to need to find somebody either on your bench or maybe in free agency off the waiver wire to come in and help your team. So with that, I'm going to give you a couple players that may be available in the waivers that can help you come in and maybe steal your game this week. At quarterback, I actually really like Ryan Fitzpatrick this week. I think he's going to have an above average game. I also like Carson Palmer. Last week, he actually had a really good game against the Falcons. This week, I think he'll do the same against an easier defense. And also look for Christian Ponder. He may be available. He's been a top 10 quarterback 3 out of the last 4 weeks. At the wide receiver position, you do have to like Mike Williams of Tampa Bay. He had a great game last week. I think he'll have another good one this week. Michael Jenkins of the Vikings has taken over the #1 role with Jerome Simpson out, and I think he'll get a lot of targets. And you also have to like Kendall Wright from the Titans. Surprisingly, he's got the second most targets on that team. They look to get him the ball. At running back, I actually like Alex Green if he's available from the Packers. He's taken over that #1 role. And I also like Danny Woodhead from the Patriots. In a crunch situation, if you're extremely tight on the bye weeks, he could get you a few points. As you head into this week's matchups, hopefully you'll take some of the professor's advice and use it to formulate your own choices on who you want to play. And God bless your fantasy football team in Week 7. As always, thank you for watching. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel for weekly updates, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter. If you have any questions for your Week 8 matchups, don't forget to post those questions in our comment box below. Tune in next week where I will show you how to make a pair of snow boots out of your favorite pair of old Transformer slippers and a spatula.